happy episode of Tech on Ice. Sorry, missed a couple of episodes last week. I was battling the man flu. If you know anyone who has ever had man flu, you know that I was near death. So, uh, glad to be back here talking about things. And I'm really looking forward to talking about this trend. It's been going on for a bit now. It's tied into, we've talked about some other things like containers and stuff like that. The idea of monorepo or like a monolith repo versus like micro repos or using microservices based to kind of control how you structure your source code. I find it very fascinating that the sentiment is that monorepos are bad, right? My 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 opinion is if having all of your source code in one place is beneficial to you, why would you have it in a bunch of different siloed repos? I understand that with agile practices and shipping software faster, the concept of having source code kind of broken up into all these different repos like makes things a bit more flexible, a bit more um, agile, quote unquote. But if you think about it, there is a limit, right, between like what is productive and what is unproductive refactoring or splitting up of your code base, right? Say for instance you have, let's just take like you have a pretty large product that has a bunch of APIs, right? And maybe 15 years ago everything was in one giant repository, right, or one giant code base. And then when teams that were doing one API endpoint were committed code, all of the code came along with it. And I understand, and I agree that that's not the best approach in a lot of cases. However, what if you work on a team that like there are interdependencies between all of these different things, right? So it does make sense at times maybe have shared libraries that need to ship, right? There is a point in time when having all this code separated, you then have to do things on the DevOps side to connect all of these interlocking pieces, right? And I think one of the things that's not really talked about, and this is kind of what I wanted to bring up in this edition of Tech on Ice, is at a point in time you're just pushing the work to a different person or a different team. The more uncoupled or decoupled your code base is from each other. I think all of us have been in a position where we've seen like a lot of complicated DevOps processes to connect pieces together, especially if like they end up getting deployed to like the same resource group or same container or same environment or same Kubernetes cluster or whatever, right? There's a lot of work, like scripts that are like moving files around or connecting deployments. That is work. It's not like it's like, oh, we're more agile because our code is all separated out, but then you have this really complicated DevOps process to bring everything back together. The funny thing is if you're a small team too, right? Like, are you going to be more agile if you need to like hop between repos if you're doing the work in your day? Sure, if you work for a huge company, I totally can relate to, hey, I work on this one part of this app. Do I really want to have hundreds of thousands of lines of code that I'll never touch, like a part of my like local project? No, that makes zero sense. But if I work for if I'm on a small team or I work for a company that has a smallish product, there's nothing wrong with a monorepo or having all of your code base on one place. Because more than likely, if you're on a small team, you touch kind of everything, right? We want to make sure developers are successful. Otherwise, like the amount of code switching, like that's a play on words and not a play on words, right? It makes it substantially more challenging. Like, okay, like I'm working on the shopping cart API, and now I need to go over and make some modifications to our ordering system, and I need to like close out my IDE or switch solutions or whatever the process is in that IDE that I'm using. Like, it sometimes just easier just to have it all in one place. Like, obviously economies of scale are a thing, so like if the larger the code base gets, the more challenging it is. But really, there's nothing wrong if you're on a small team and you have a monorepo. I do say that, like, if you have a huge application that you have hundreds of developers working on, you might want to separate that out. But I also don't think separating it out to the nines is advantageous at all. That's my personal opinion. I hope you like this one. I think that monorepo versus microrepo, microservices is an interesting. We didn't even talk about like the deployment side of it, right? Like, Kubernetes and microservice-based architecture. We didn't talk about that. Maybe I'll talk about that in another episode. But this is going to be it for today. I appreciate you listening. If you completely disagree with my opinion, please let me know. Love to have a conversation with you. Like and subscribe if you like this sort of content. Share with people that you might think, oh, they might like this guy sitting in a cold plunge talking about tech. But that's it for me today. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.